Have you been asked to write a research paper for a class using APA citations? Don't worry, the Cerro Coso Library has a quick guide on APA citation to help you get started. So what is a citation? Whenever you integrate an outside quote or concept into your paper, you need to cite the source where you found it. This citation has two pieces. The in-text citation is a brief mention of the source in the body of your paper. It helps direct the reader to the matching full citation on the references page, which has detailed information about where the resource can be found. So why should you cite sources? First of all, citing your sources helps you avoid plagiarism by giving credit to those who did the work that you're incorporating into your paper. Wouldn't you want someone to recognize your efforts instead of stealing it for themselves? Citation strengthens your arguments with support from other academic sources. It's nice when experts in the field agree with you. Your citations also provide a roadmap to your sources. If the person reading your paper would like to learn more, your references page shows them where to find the original resource you used. Finally, citing sources demonstrates that you put in the effort to do your own research. So when should you cite something? In general, provide citations when you directly quote from another person's work, paraphrase an author's words or ideas even if you aren't quoting them directly, or mention when someone's work has helped you develop your own ideas. There are some things that don't need citations. For example, you don't need to cite common knowledge, such as George Washington was the first president. You also don't need to cite general facts, such as the Earth goes around the sun. A good rule of thumb is that if this is something that you learned in primary school, or it's something that most people should know, you don't need to cite it. If you're citing something more specific, such as the Earth's average orbital distance around the sun, you might cite that just to be safe. Finally, you don't need to cite data or results you collected. If you conducted an experiment for this paper, you don't need to cite yourself. Just present your findings. We cover some citations in this video, but for more, we recommend checking out the examples in the APA guide on the Cerro Coso Library website. To get there, visit cerrocoso.edu/library. On the left-hand side, click on the link that says Citation Help, MLA, and APA. Next, click on the APA tab towards the top of the page. So let's start with an explanation of in-text citations. We can click on the APA in-text citations tab to see examples using one or more authors, as well as what to do when there's missing information. You can also scroll down this page to see the various ways of inserting a quote into your paper. In general, there are two ways of inserting a direct quote. In a parenthetical citation, citation parts are all placed in the parentheses at the end of the quote. In this case, we have Flanagan, 2000, P13 in parentheses. This example also shows the three main components of an in-text citation in APA: the author's last name, the year of publication, and the page number where the information comes from. Note that when the quote and citation are at the end of the sentence, the period goes after the end parentheses and not before the second quotation mark, even if the quote originally includes one. The second type of direct quote is a narrative citation, where citation parts are integrated into the sentence more naturally to become part of the narrative. Notice where the author, publication date, and page number appear in this example. According to Flanagan, 2000, in REM sleep there are often, quote, blah blah blah, end quote, P13. Here, the author's last name, Flanagan, is integrated into the sentence, and the year of publication follows it in parentheses. While these two pieces can be moved around, the page number should always appear after the quote. Fun fact, the phrase, according to Flanagan, is called a signal phrase. Other examples of signal phrases include so-and-so reports, so-and-so suggests, so-and-so proposes, etc. Signal phrases are a great way to introduce a quote naturally, rather than just dropping it into your paper. Let's look at some other examples of formatting in-text citations. Our previous example showed a single author, but if there are two authors in a parenthetical citation, insert an ampersand, the and sign, between the two authors' last names. For a narrative citation, spell out the and in between the names since you're using the names in a regular sentence. The year of publication and the page number remain the same. If there are three or more authors, only list the first author's last name in your in-text citation, followed by et al. Et al means and others in Latin, and it shouldn't be italicized. It's an abbreviation for the phrase et ali, so the shortened al part is always followed by a period. Note that you should include both the period after the al and the comma that separates this part from the date. Sometimes you might use a resource that doesn't have an author, or a date, or page numbers. Web pages often lack all three. If you don't have an author, you can use the shortened form of the title in quotation marks. If the date is missing, use ND, which stands for no date, instead of the year. If you're using a resource without page numbers, include a description of the location of the quote. This might be a paragraph number if the resource is short, or perhaps a heading or section name and the paragraph number if it's longer. You are trying to help your reader find the exact location of the quote, even if they're using a different device or font size, so don't invent page numbers if they're not already printed on the resource. If you paraphrase or summarize someone else's work, you don't have to put quotes around the words, but you still have to include an in-text citation. In this example, there's no author, so we use the first word of the title instead. Also, note when the cited information spans more than one page, we insert two P's to signify multiple pages, and put a dash between the page numbers to indicate the range. If you're summarizing the entire work or concept rather than a specific section, you can omit page numbers entirely. Regardless of how much of a source you used, every in-text citation needs a matching full citation on the references page, and vice versa. Speaking of the references page, this is what it might look like. The references are listed on a separate page in alphabetical order by the author's last name or the first word of the title. Check out the library's APA guide for templates and step-by-step instructions on how to format it. So how do we create a full citation on the references page? Let's go over the different components of these citations. In this article example, there are two authors with the last names of Ix and Cottrell. Their first initials follow their last name with a comma in between. We also add a comma and an ampersand between their names in a full citation. If you have between 3 and 20 authors, write all their names out like this in the full citation, separating each one with commas and the last one with the ampersand. The authors are then followed by the year of publication in parentheses. Next is the title of the article. In APA, we use sentence-style capitalization, where you only capitalize the first word of the title, the first word of the subtitle, which usually appears after a semicolon, and any proper nouns. We end the title with a period, and then we have the title of the journal, which is italicized. Notice that here, unlike the article title, all the main words in the title of the journal are capitalized. We then have a comma, add the volume number in italics, then the issue number in parentheses but not in italics. We have another comma, and then we list the page range followed by a period. We don't include the P here. So here's an example of a journal article from a database with the DOI. It's similar to the previous example, but note that this article has a subtitle, so the first word after the semicolon is also capitalized. Additionally, the journal doesn't have an issue number, so we can leave that out entirely. Finally, the DOI, or Digital Object Identifier, is written as a URL at the very end of the citation with no punctuation following it. If you did access the article online, but it doesn't have a DOI, you can use the URL instead. Next are some citations for books. The citation starts with the author's last name as usual, followed by the first and middle initials with a period after each and a space between them. Then the year of publication in parentheses, followed by the title of the book in italics. And then we end with the name of the publisher, and there's a period after each one of these. If you're citing a web page, start with the author's name, the publication date, and the title of the page in italics with sentence case. Then add the site name and finally the URL. If there's no individual author, you can use the organization name. If that's also unavailable, omit the name and move the title of the article in front of the date where the name should go. If there's no publication date, or if there's only a general copyright date at the bottom of the website, use ND for no date. If the site name is the same as the organization name, you can omit the second site name. If you're citing a video, use the account name as the author, followed by a period. Then the date the video was published, and then the title of the video in italics, followed by the format in brackets. In this case, we would use video. Finally, list the name of the host site, in this case YouTube, followed by the URL. If you are citing a class lecture, list the instructor's name first, then the publication date and title of the lecture, followed by the phrase lecture note in bracket. Finally, list the host site where it was published and the link. At Cerro Coso, we currently use Canvas. It can only be accessed by authorized students and employees, so we just need to include the general Canvas login page, since outside readers won't be able to access it anyway. You can find these examples and many others on the library's APA Citations Guide. If you have any questions, please contact us. You can schedule an appointment with one of our librarians by Zoom, phone, email, or in person. or chat with the librarian 24/7 on our website. Don't forget to check out our Zoom workshops on APA citations. You can find the schedule and everything else at cerrocoso.edu/library. Have a wonderful day.